Hello, PHCC. Welcome to Season 1, Episode 7 of PHCC Rocks, a podcast highlighting some of the great things happening all over America related to the National Plumbing, Heating, Cooling Contractors Association. I'm your host, Joel Long, and we're coming to you from today's international headquarters of PHCC and looking forward to having some great discussions in the coming weeks and months. We are doing this podcast because we believe in telling the incredible stories of our members, chapters, events, and partners from all over the country that make PHCC rock. Today, we are highlighting PHCC of Tennessee, and we're calling this episode Hope in Tennessee. We have Beth Killen and Gordy Noe of PHCC of Tennessee with us, and Beth serves as the executive director, and Gordy is the long-standing president of Tennessee. What is this, your third year?
Third or fourth, something
Third or fourth or fifth?
I'm losing track.
You quit counting. You're gonna have to quit. You're gonna have to quit missing those meetings when they're. Come on, man. But that's incredible. That's, I think, for anybody that doesn't know you, and Gordy, you and I don't know how long we've known each other now, but and you guys know I love Tennessee. You're my second favorite state in the South, and but Gordy,
wait, Joel. We do have to clarify something right up front. I did watch the Georgia podcast, and in the Georgia podcast, you did say that they're the second best state. So that means Tennessee is number one, Georgia's 2, North Carolina's 3. That's just the way all of this goes.
All right, the podcast is over, Gordy. So, Beth, I've had a lot of fun. Well, okay, Beth, if you're going to do that, who's your favorite contractor in the state of Tennessee?
The newest one.
Okay, the newest one. That's perfect. But okay, that's great. All right, so I got to get my lies straight. Gordy, I have you've been a great mentor, like a lot of contractors with each other. You may not even know it, Gordy, but you've been a great mentor to me and a lot of other people in Tennessee. But I think that's really one of the big strengths of PHCC that I love is you start meeting people. Our businesses are all a little bit different, but when we talk about how we operate, how we treat people, how we want to win, how we want to help our industry, but our communities, guys like you won National Contractor of the Year a couple of years ago. And you just, by being who you are and doing what you do, it just leads to improving everybody else. And so, I'm really thrilled. When Beth told me you were going to actually be on this call, on this podcast, I was really thrilled with that. And then we're not going to let you talk. Beth and I aren't the whole time, but you're probably okay with that, actually.
I'm just going to listen.
Yeah, whatever. But listen, I love hearing the stories of how people ended up in PHCC. So, give us some background. People want to hear about you. Give us some background on how you ended up in PHCC of Tennessee.
Probably like a lot of other people did. I'd been in business for several years and worked with vocational schools and all kinds of different things to help get kids involved back before we really knew it was an issue. But I had friends that taught at schools and we helped their vocational classes out, or HVAC and refrigeration classes out, and got them equipment and went and taught and did different things. And so I was kind of affiliated with that kind of stuff ever since, since I'd been in business for just a couple of years anyway. And had one particular guy that had asked me several times to come to PHCC, 15 or so years ago. And you never have time. You're always busy, especially when you're a small business and you're one of the, you're not a chief, you're one of the Indians. And so finally, one day I just kind of decided, well, I'm going to go and I got time today, so let me go and maybe just get him off my back. I don't really know. I don't really remember. But I think a lot of people have gone for me, just to get me off of their back probably. But, I went and went again and found out that there was good programs that were kind of connected to what I'd been trying to do kind of unofficially for a long time, and just kind of stuck with it and have missed very few meetings since then, I guess. And, was the local president at one time, didn't have sense enough to know when to step down from it either. So, but you would think I'd learn something from that where I'd get out of this gig, soon. But anyway, that's kind of similar to the way a lot of people, go. Somebody that's an associate, in the same industry, invites them, and they finally get around going.
And I know you're real humble about it, but give us 2 minutes about your company.
Started in '81. We are in about a week and a half. We will be 41 years old. Wish I was 41 years old again, but I'll actually be 65 come Saturday. So, started out here in the area, and we were that guy that had a couple of helpers or a sub crew, and hoped to get a job a week, and that was a big accomplishment, and have grown from that to somebody asked me this morning. I'm not real sure how many employees we have now. I think 64, and that's more than I ever dreamed that we would have. And I know there's a lot of companies have a lot more than that. I think we've got 48 trucks on the road, and which is a liability that I hate. But anyway, we've been fortunate. We've been blessed. I think we've worked hard. I've got great people, just like you do. We've been fortunate to have those great people, and we've hired people that we felt like fit the mold, and didn't the drill. You don't just hire anybody because you ask them for trouble. And so, one thing we're looking for is quality people, and we're looking for people that are trained, preferably people that have been through our apprentice program or something of that nature, or somebody that's worked for you and relocated to our area. We get that all the time. I bet you all do too.
We do, yeah. I get a lot of people, then we start finding the PHCC connection with really good contractors. You're right, yeah, we do. And like we had a kid moving to Florida a couple of weeks ago, and I called a guy. His wife was getting relocated, and he was going, and he was, after we got over crying that he was leaving because we had gotten him, he was really good, and I called somebody in Florida, and you thought it was a gold mine, but it is, and so it was. Yeah, I agree with you on that. So 41 years, and you started it, right?
Yeah, I started. I actually had a partner for about 6 months, and he didn't like starving, and I must have. So, that was that. But yeah, I've been on my own since then. Got 2 boys in it now, and they are managing a lot more than they ever have. They're not on the road just selling now, and so my intentions are at the end of this year not to be in the day-to-day activity. But still be involved.
I think to me it's like, hang on a second. I was told I need to move my mic because I'm going in. There we go. How's that? All right. How's that? Is that better? I got more bosses at work too, just like at home. Well, Gore, I think that's an American success story, and the reason I wanted you to say that is, a lot of guys today are trying to start a business and they see it as being so small, and they have that conversation. And sure, today it may be, but if you keep working at it and you keep building it and every day you're focused like you have, then look at what it can turn into. And the answer on the number of trucks on the road, how many trucks you got on the road? I always say too many. And I know that's your thought too, but congrats on that. That's great feedback and great. That means a lot to people, especially younger guys trying to start their businesses on, what can happen. Congrats on that. Beth, how about you? How did you get started?
Back in 2008, we have 13 years this year. I'm doing this job, but back in 2008, I had my own marketing business, and I did a lot of work for General Motors doing their auto shows, the New York Auto Show. Oh, okay. I did websites for real estate and mortgage companies, and in 3 months, I lost my entire business. All of the mortgage companies, the real estate, and the automotive industry all just went under. So I saw an ad in the paper, and I really thought, oh, this is going to turn around tomorrow, and it didn't. So June of that year, I just applied for a job. It was an assistant, and You know, they had events and things like that. So I just applied, and it was just going to be a part-time thing, you know, until the economy turned and all that. So a year later, I got the job as exec, and I've just been doing it ever since. So
I think we all go into it thinking it's going to be a part-time, don't we, Gordy? I think that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so 13 years, right?
Right.
That's pretty, that's an incredible journey on what you've done with Tennessee in that time frame.
Thank you.
Congrats. So give us a few minutes too. You know, PHCC is one of the oldest trade associations, the oldest in the country. And I know Tennessee's got a great history. So what I want to do is you give us some history background, some information on Tennessee, PHCC of Tennessee in general. And then I want to go into a couple of specific focus items before we get to the big thing, this education thing that's making such a big difference. So is that okay with you guys?
Sure.
Give us some history and background, if you guys can, of PHCC.
The Tennessee Association started in 1897. So we're actually 125 years this year. And, you know, it grew. It was mainly in Memphis, and then it moved to Nashville, and now it's in Knoxville. And, you know, the membership has grown, and then unions came into the state and it went away. And so it's really a defined group of people who are committed to the future. It really is. And I've got this picture. It's actually in two places in the office, and I'm going to put it up here. It's from the 46th annual PHCC convention that was in Memphis in 1928. And the reason I love this picture is when I think about 1928, think of all the things in history that went on after 1928, and PHCC is still around, you know. And I love the hats and the dressed up clothes that these people had to wear back then. But I'm going to just put this up here so you can see it. But that's the 1928 convention.
Where was that?
In Memphis.
That was in Memphis. Okay.
Yeah, and look at all the people there. I mean, it was really kind of cool. Can they see that? Yeah. So anyway, I have this above my desk, and then above the desk in there. And, you know, whenever it gets kind of like hairy, I just think, oh my gosh, those people all survived. We're going to survive this as well. So it's a good history. It's a really good history of people dedicated to actually the health and, you know, the health of the country. So.
And, you know, then it was all clean water, but now, you know, it's really a focus on clean air and clean water. That's really what we do. And
yeah, energy. Yeah, sure.
And more that's becoming a, you know, a really important focus these last couple of years. But that's a great picture. Gordy and I, we'd both be able to wear hats there. I like that, right, Gordy? But you want to take that hat off, Gordy?
No.
Okay, just checking.
No,
you know,
not at church.
Not at
I'm not at church.
That's perfect. Give me, you know, state of Tennessee PHCC, number of people. I mean, how do you see the state association right now?
It's a difficult time. I think it's a difficult time everywhere. We've got 55 members, and they range from, you know, we have the largest contractor in the state, Lee Company, who's actually the governor's ex-company. And we have a couple of one-man truck kind of companies. And we have quite a few associate members that are part of our association too. And the thing that's been happening in Tennessee in the last 3 years is just the they're immigrating too here, just mass numbers of people from all over the world.
People are moving there. Yeah, we're seeing that too.
And you're seeing that down in North Carolina, and I think Georgia is too. So it's a different time, but even though it's a different time and people don't seem to have as much time as they used to, it's the same thing that's been going on for years. I mean, we need educated employees. We need education for contractors to do their jobs better. You know, we need to have better ways to network now that you can't all meet. And, you know, I've always said this, the best thing about the PHCC is not in, you know, newsletters or magazines or anything like that. It's in meeting people and having kind of like interests, but also meeting people that can help you out with things. I mean, I talk to the other execs in my zone all the time, and we swap back and forth ideas. And I know the contractors do that as well. I know you told a really good story about Steve Gammon, who was a prior president in your own company, and how you got some help from him. And, you know, actually, Joel, I think you should tell that. That's a really good story about what PHCC is.
Well, you know, we were sitting, I think it was actually in Chattanooga, and we had some meetings that day and some different things. And Steve and I were talking about our businesses and some of the things, and he asked me a question about, and something in the meeting had come up about hanging ductwork. And we were still, and Gordy, man, this is going to tell you a lot about Joel and his team. We were still shearing 1-inch straps to hang all of our ductwork, and earlier in the day, there had been some conversation, and Steve came over and sat down beside me and said, "Hey, how are you? You seem really smart." And I said, "Really?" And he goes, "Listen, we got this new thing." And he showed me some of the cable systems they were using just to hang in some of it. And, and now, of course, it's what we all use. We all use some kind of, in some commercial thing, but he just, and, I didn't ask for it. I didn't, but I mean, that one little thing just, and it's those little tidbits, I think, that Beth's talking about a lot of times that, just really helps you with, attack something a little bit different or a little bit different view of something. And of course, in Tennessee, I think he made some comment about where we're always, 5 years ahead of you, but whatever. But that's also, it wasn't, he was looking out for me. And I think that's what I see across the country, Gordy. And I've told the story here. There's a guy in North Carolina that has a real small company, but he's brilliant on things that we forget about, being a little bit larger company. And he's a lot better at customer service, and we get in trouble with that sometimes. You get a little bit big for your britches or whatever. And so, next thing you know, we're not doing as good on certain things as we should because we're going too fast or whatever. So I think, that cross-reference on stuff like that is really, really a key. And I see, thinking about that, I know best practices, best practices is one of the things I'm really focusing on. And I think that's one of the best practices that if chapters and state associations will set it up to maybe open up more of those kind of conversation opportunities, not it all being so formatted, give open forums to talk, people to have time to talk and stuff when you're at your meetings. And I see my trophy in the background. Is that my trophy in the background?
No, it's ours.
Are you sure?
Yeah, well, I'm very sure.
When you talk about best practices, the Zone 2 meetings that you guys set up years and years ago have led to all 3 states getting a lot better. And then I think about now, we had that, and that's an event now where we just share all this information, but really we just develop relationships. I mean, think about the first couple compared to the last one. Think about and I know on that trophy there's all the fun we've made of you. Not Tennessee. And I think, is that on there? I'm sure those kind of things.
Yeah, the first year we won, and then the next 2 years, I think North Carolina and then Georgia won, and you were not Tennessee.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
We won this past year. Actually, Gordy with his axe throwing. Who knew the man could throw an axe like that? And so that was the contest. And so now it says Tennessee again in very bold, very with like 3 exclamation points after it. So
of course,
it's touche. It's touche. But talking about that, Joel, one of the things that our meetings have evolved and are just about everything we do is to have fun as part of the mix.
Yeah.
I think the entire nation has gotten so serious with everything, meetings and following Robert's Rules of Order. Of course, you have to do all those things. But you have to integrate some fun in things as well. We start off our board meeting, something we just started, last year or the year before, where every board member goes around, tells something good that's happening in either their company or their life. We find out about grandkids that are born, and it's a level of networking, if you want to use that word, or getting to know each other that doesn't happen in those, sit down and here's the minutes, type of meeting. So
I think it's personal. You really just get into a personal connection with people, and that's really where you make it or break it. I agree with you, Beth. And yeah, we tend to have fun, don't we?
Yeah, and you know what? Without the fun, that's what you remember. That and the food, obviously. But you just you're there to get a job done, and everybody's there to get a job done. But I'm sorry, this isn't your job. Just like this is not your job to be president of the PHCC. It's something that you're passionate about. So why not have fun doing it? Because your regular job, you may not have that much fun. And I constantly try and keep that, we have chili contest, and it's a big bragging right thing. We have a spaghetti sauce contest next Wednesday night at one of the chapters. And, this huge bragging rights. I will die if I don't win, and Gordy knows that. But, those are the kinds of things we like to do so that it's not the static thing that's been done for years.
Ethel says Beth's going down.
His wife says I'm going down. You see that? That's just, we try and do that. And that, that level of, it's not intimacy, it's more a level of just camaraderie is very good for any association.
No, too, after the last competition we had, I mean, you know, there was a formal investigation into, you know, if y'all had axe throwing in your trade school, and if y'all, like in high school, if y'all had like teams and stuff, we actually did a formal investigation through the Department of Education, Tennessee, and we couldn't find anything, so whatever.
But you know what the funny part was, Joel? None of us knew till we got there what it was. And, you know, I actually tried to bribe Ellen, who's the exec from, who's hosting it, the exec from Georgia, to tell us what was, so we could practice, you know, nothing. We get there, and I was just as shocked as everybody else at Gordy, who's, by the way, Pioneer, and he's got one of those Pioneer guys with the coon hat on his truck. So, you know, I should have put 2 and 2 together that this man knew how to throw an axe.
I've never thrown one though.
No, he hadn't, but man, he went up there and, I mean, killed everybody. I mean, no one was even close to his score. So
We're gonna do.
actually got him socks that have little axes on them as a joke at one of the board meetings because he did so well. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think it's in North Carolina next, isn't it? Or is it in Tennessee?
No, it's in Tennessee. It's going to be in Tennessee, in Chattanooga, the last weekend of the month. And
couch sitting.
I'm not telling what we're going to do. I'm not. So.
Couch sitting and remote control.
Yeah, that's usually one. Yeah.
So you've had, you know, Tennessee, to me, you guys are winning because of a lot of your best practices, but then you do a lot of great things. And I mean, and I know communication, you know, one of my things this year was really focusing nationally on communication. And I think we tend to get in our boxes. My company, we'll think we're communicating well, but a lot of times we're doing it from our perspectives instead of communicating what's best for our customers at my company. So we always fight that battle. And I think national is doing a great job in a lot of ways, but I think also, you know, it's the same with you guys, with your contractors. You know, what do you think on the communication side? I know your newsletter and stuff you do like that. And I don't know. I should know what you call it, but what do you do with that? Or what do you think is successful?
It's the news link, and you know, I'm very proud of the fact that we win the competition every year. I thank you for leaving that part out, Joel. And I know you had it in your notes, but I think we won for like 10 years in a row. And the reason is I, you know, kind of have a marketing background, but not really. I totally try and understand my audience. They don't have a lot of time to read, you know, a novel. They just don't. And if they don't see something they want in an email, they're not going to read it. And I learned that, you know, really quickly. I love bullets. They like bullets because boom, 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 they can get the message. Do I need to do something about this? Is this something I need to know? But with the newsletters, I try and capture, especially with pictures, the best of what we're doing. I make it very relatable to them, you know, and, you know, like the headlines are not, you know, Gordy Noe wins axe throwing contest. It's Tennessee is the #1 zone again, you know, that kind of thing. And just try and make it all relatable and really know my audience. What do you think, Gordy? He's laughing at me over here over this axe throwing.
Yeah,
but,
no, she does a great job on it. And I mean, she thinks of things put in that I'd never thought of. But, you know, but yeah,
I think
we do win it pretty consistently, you know.
So, all right, no more softballs. You know, I do think we kind of lose track of Gordy, you'll know, we're getting now, and probably since you started the business too, and maybe even the last 10 years especially, there's so much information moving so fast that it's really important to get it in the right kind of format. Because like when I get a lot of things, I'm going to breeze through them. And then if something catches my eye, I'm going to read that in very good detail. But I think a lot of our contractors are that way with all the emails and all the texts and all the social media and stuff and all this stuff that, you know, Gordy, you and I are kind of at the background end of that kind of stuff, you know, where we're not, you know, we used to actually have fax machines. And I know the young guys now have no idea what that is. And so you just, you know, it just is such a different format. So I think that's really an important point is also give people different opportunities, Beth, you know, not decide, meet them where they are maybe, you know. Is that part of that focus?
One of the things I don't think any other generations had before this one is, yeah, you're right. We evolved from the fax machine to email. I mean, when email first came out, I thought this is dumb. Who's going to read this, you know? And of course, now everybody's talking postcards and going back to written things, but it's to choose wisely. I mean, there's Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat and, all Facebook and all these different things. Where do you spend your time and your efforts? And I'm still trying to figure that out on a daily basis. I, talk to some of the younger generation, and like I have a daughter who's 27. 2 weeks ago it was Snapchat. Now that we don't do that anymore. Now it's Instagram. I'm like, oh, okay, what the heck's Instagram? So anyway, it's a real challenge to figure out where these channels should be and where you should spend your time working on them. And it seems like as soon as you get one figured out, something else comes down the pike, and at a rapid speed that I don't think has ever happened, in the history of marketing or communication.
So I really do think that y'all are doing a great job with that. When I talk to your contractors, and I've been in a lot of your meetings over the years through the zones and everything. So are there any other like best practices so that other execs in other states, is there something else you wanted to talk about on that before we move on to education?
I'm going to say that one of the things we've done in the last 2 years is we have not had a lot of attendance like we used to at golf tournaments or clay shoots or things like that. And to try and figure out why that is, and realizing that people like Gordy or some of the other contractors, talking to them, they're like, Beth, I just don't have the time. The people who used to have those free afternoons to go to a meeting or free evenings to go to something are now out there, bidding jobs and doing project management. I've got a contractor right down the road here who's running pipe because he doesn't, have enough employees or enough skilled people to do it. So it's a whole different thing. I think it's going to turn around at some point. So it's not like, I don't look at attendance anymore as like one of the quantifiers. I look at, is everybody that could get there and who did, attend the event have a good time? I mean, that has had to change or evolve. So the best practice, I would say, would be to not only look at the numbers that's coming, it's try and give the people that can make it the best time that they can. So
well, that's really good advice. Yeah, and we're seeing, Gordy, I don't know about you, I'm seeing it all when the contractors I'm talking to. Every single contractor is a lot busier in their business, but a lot of it's on things that aren't really producing. We're having to deal with so many other things, just like COVID, that we didn't have to deal with normally, and it's causing all these other. And so we're working longer hours, and it seems like it's harder to do everything. So I think that's a great point, Beth. Making sure that I hear that as you're kind of meeting them where they are, but when you get them, make sure it's successful and fun, like you said earlier, and making sure that it's a good outcome for everybody. Okay, great. All right, so thank you so much. I think that really gives us a good snapshot of what's going on in Tennessee and how you guys see it. And, we call this Hope for Tennessee because, Beth, when I talked to you, about doing this, as always with you, the energy and the excitement that, I don't know, it's pretty amazing. So I'd like to, you're doing this incredible apprenticeship program. And I know that I was there several years ago, and I think there was 130 apprentices in the room, some of your award stuff, and it was just amazing. But, I did want to, before we start this, acknowledge that, you guys are not using the classic PHCC apprenticeship program like a lot of other states are, but I wanted to acknowledge that, but also, you had this program going before we really got ours going at a high level. Is that correct?
Yes. We use NCCR, yeah.
Yeah, but I wanted you guys to talk about this program because I don't think it really matters. And so picking it has the exact same goals. It's trying to accomplish the exact same things that PHCC National is. And we're actually have been learning from each other for years and years and years. And I know when we've had conversations, we go back and forth on, okay, what's the struggles, what's working, what's not. And both programs are better because of it. So really, give us an overview of your program and width and depth and good, bad, and ugly, and just start talking about it, and then we'll go from there if we could.
Well, this apprenticeship school here in Knoxville started in 1988, and for years and years they rented space from the local schools, and the schools would hire the teachers based on their CTE teachers, and I kind of took over the administration for this program 4 or 5 years ago, and talked to Gordy last year, and I said, I want to take this over. I want this to be under our roof. And Gordy found this building that we're currently in. We have a lab and classrooms, and he was really spearheaded this whole thing. He got us better lighting, and just, he saw the vision that I had, which is something that, is really good when you have a board of directors that does that. And we took it over, and we've got 142 in here now. We had 3 nights a week. Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, we have sheet metal. They're all 4-year programs, DOL certified. Sheet metal, plumbing, and HVAC. Plumbing, we have most of our students in plumbing, and then we have a lab. And what they do, it's kind of a hybrid program that I'm really excited about because they do the book work. You know, it used to be that the teacher would actually sit there and read a lot of the paragraphs out of the book, and the students sitting there. And that just bothered me because I've got some very, very talented teachers, and I want them to teach them not only what is in the book, but other things like, you know, when you're setting a toilet, you make sure the bolts are this way, or, you know, if you're working on an HVAC system, you have to check this, and this will save you time down the road, and those kinds of things. So basically, they other than they meet every week in September and October to get all those core, you know, math and all those kinds of things out of the way, and then it's every other week they come in here and they do all the hands-on activities that's from that lesson, or they do field trips. Like we just sent them over to the local the plumbing 4 kids. We sent them over to the local sewage treatment plant, so they could see when stuff comes out of the sewage, why shouldn't they be using this, or how this works. We sent them to a pool manufacturer to learn how to, you know, set up hot tubs and things like that. And so because we've taken this over, we can add a lot of these other things in. I've got some tool companies coming in. And, you know, because they're here too, we can really focus on the students that are lacking. And I'll say it, no child left behind has left a lot of children behind. I've got 18, 19-year-olds that can't add and subtract, you know. So we hired math teachers from a local college, and they were here twice a week, months of September, October, and November. And I can honestly say every single one of those kids has passed their math. We've had some kids that can't read very well, so we'll sit there and read them the questions. I mean, all the tests are done online in a proctored room. And Gordy, you've got some people in the program. You know, you should talk about it a little bit too.
Yeah, we've got several in, I don't know, first, second, third, and fourth year, I guess. And some of them weren't so good at math, you know, wasn't real sure how to read a tape measure. A lot of those, not necessarily young people, but a lot of those people came in, didn't know anything, and we taught them to do maintenance, and they basically just knew what they were showed to do, you know, to clean and to check, and so we're putting them through 4 years of HVAC, and you know, those guys, they learned a lot from the math program, which was, you know, that's one of the things you overlook. You assume that somebody's going to go to any kind of school knows a certain amount of things before they get there, but that's not the case. And so, you know, I've had, you know, looking back now, I've had a lot of employees, probably have a lot of employees that are in the field that are not in our apprentice school that might could use the math training themselves. But you know, fortunately, a lot of those guys have been at it so long, they've learned that and they've overcome that now, and they are good at those things. But it is amazing how many people can't add 2 and 2 on the blueprint or on a scale or on a on a ruler or on, you know, weighing something in. We just take that for granted.
That lack of confidence leads to other problems sometimes. A lot of times they're on the edge of being able to do it, but they're not confident enough, so that backing it back up leads them in a lot better direction is what we see. And it sounds like that's what, you know, some of the outcomes you guys are seeing too. So a couple things. It sounds like you're not taking anything for granted. You know, if you got some kid or somebody that has a weakness, it's not just it's just not a standard. Well, here's the program. You're in it or you're out. You'll modify. You'll go, okay, we got this issue. We're going to do something extra for this kid to make sure he gets moved. That's a lot of what I'm hearing. You know, the English, the issues.
If they show us the willingness to learn and they want to do the job, then it's our job to get them to that point. And we also have 35 people online. And I hope that this program, after this year, we're going to evaluate it. We could do it across the state. Yeah. And just have these small little, you know, they do a lot of their stuff online. And then we have these small little pods where they go and do because they have to do what's called a performance profile. They actually have to show they know how to install a water heater or whatever as part of the curriculum. So if we can have these teachers that go out into these different areas, we have a program in Chattanooga and one up in Northeast Tennessee right now. And we train the instructors to do that. So we want to branch out at some point all the way across the state. So
your brick and mortar hybrid though is leading. I mean, I hear all the time, well, our state's big. We hear this, but you got this one brick and mortar. Do you have one, or you have more than one?
Just one.
Okay, but the way you're doing it, how in the world did you get 142 kids in this program?
Well, we have a lot of contractors who just keep sending us employees. We probably have an attrition of, I'm going to say 10% from August to October, September. And a lot of that is not as so much school, but it's, they get in there and they just don't like the job anymore, or they skip to a different contractor.
Your 90% retention rate on your school, Gordy, that's pretty good, isn't it? So instead of 140, you may have 130 something. Okay, I'll take that. But
no, we have 142 now. We started off with, I think, 151 or 2.
Oh, okay.
So they left in September, October. Yeah.
That's incredible, Beth. I mean, normally those kind of programs, especially they're working during the day, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then they're going to school at night. And so we can't get kids today to do that kind of stuff. And I just disagree.
And that's another thing, though. It's every other week they go.
Yeah.
So, and if they come in here and they're like, I didn't get my work done. I'm like, what the heck? You had 14 days, so you need to get this going. And it's that personal thing too. Sometimes I'll put out all these candies, and they'll come in, oh, you got candies this week. It's not an all the time thing, and just little incentive things that they don't get anywhere else. So.
And you morphed it sounds like, to, we hear all the time, to push it to be as much as hands-on, to see other opportunities in the businesses and how wide plumbing and air conditioning can be with the different opportunities. It's not just residential, or it's not just commercial, but there's also the water treatment stuff. There's all these other avenues that once they get this education, you hear the plumbing stories or the air conditioning. Well, there's so many different avenues they can go down, and you're exposing them. It sounds like, to all those different opportunities.
Trying to anyway. Yeah, we had some OSHA people come in the fall. Last fall, we had actual codes people from Knox County come in and talk to them about, why the changes were, how to find things in the code books. We had some people come in and talk about construction drawings and how to read them, and, what's the important thing to look for. So I'm always looking for somebody to come in and teach them something that they're not going to get in their jobs, because somebody told me a long time ago when I started this online program that the one kid that he was a plumber for 8 years, and he decided to take this anyway, online program that we had. And he told his boss, he said, I've been doing this a long time, but now I know why I do it. So that really struck a chord with me, and that's what we work on. And it was so funny, just the other night, a kid came in and said, I've been doing this, for 8 years too. And I thought, oh, this has to be the mark. And because they're in their 30s at that point, and they're like, boy, now I know why I do this. And so that's what we try and teach them, why you do something, not just to do it. And when they're on the job during the day, they're just doing it. Don't know why.
So you're hearing a lot from, I'm hearing a lot about why it's successful with students. They're getting a lot of hands-on. You're helping them with other things, the math, and figuring out other weaknesses they may have. You're making it fun because they're seeing all kind of different opportunities, and it's personal. I mean, you said in there 4 or 5 times about how personal it's becoming. And then this last thing about the why, if you always start with why, the old Simon Sinek conversation, if you explain why to people, they really get excited. So it sounds like you're tying all that together. But, the other thing for us and our members is, how's this really helping your contractors? What's happening with that?
Well, if a kid comes into you, 18, 20-year-old kid, and says, I'd like a job, and well, I'm going to pay for you to go to school too. And it's a benefit of being an employee here. Where else can you go for that? I don't even know another job where you pay for your people that work for you to go to school, or, some people are going to replace you someday. I mean, what do you see it as, Gordy?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a huge benefit. And those that want to go to school, they realize that's a benefit. They realize that they're not going to get that hardly anywhere else. And with the new online school, we're seeing, and we'll see a lot more as time goes on, a lot of not kids, but students in general that would like to learn more, but they have families. I've got one guy that he's 30. I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4 or something like that. Got 4 or 5 kids. No way he can go to school, and he wants to go to school. And so we're talking about getting him online next year. And he says, "Yeah, I can get away from the kids for long enough, in a room somewhere, and do this." So that's a big benefit, to him and to us too. He wants to learn it. We'll pay his way, if he'll go find him a quiet room, one night a week or whatever the case may be.
I think it's the same thing with the students. I stand there in front of them, and right before they start, you'll have 50 or 60 first-year students, and they'll say, the difference between being a helper for the rest of your life and being a project manager is right here in this room, and your employer wants you to move on too. Their big thing is they need these people to be educated. They need them to know what to do so that they can, make more off of them and then propel them into a better career. So it's a win-win.
So you're showing the career path. You're showing them a clear way to go from where they are now to what's next. And you're providing.
Yeah, we urge our instructors, to find people like yourself, that could come in and talk about the industry kind of from a neutral position, because it's kind of like, my guys, they listen to me all the time. They listen to our managers all the time. Now, let me rephrase it. They don't listen. They have to hear us. And so if you come in and you say the same thing, it strikes a nerve with them. With us, they go to sleep.
I'm an expert. I'm an expert from North Carolina, right? I mean,
right. That's right. So you could come in, and talk to my people, and they'd listen to you, and I could come to your place and they'd listen to me better than they listen to you, I'm sure. So,
yeah, I got a 21-year-old son, Gordy. I'm gonna send over to see you. Okay.
But anyway, we urge our instructors, to kind of look outside and find people that need to come in, and it may be somebody from a manufacturer or from another school or another instructor somewhere. It may not be a business at all.
Yeah. And so, I just love what's happening in our industry. And we have been focused on it a long time about how incredible the industry is with those career paths for young people, especially when you compare the cost for the outcome, the initial cost for the outcomes you can get with raising a family and the positives, and as opposed to going to college, and the debt that a lot of people are in. They get out and they got really bad degrees, and then they start all over. And so I think that's really starting to happen. So it really sounds like Tennessee, you guys have been able to connect that, because when you tell people you got 140 people, Beth, in your apprenticeship program, they don't understand how you got that moving at such a high level. Normally in the state of North Carolina, like, we'll have 40 people over the entire state, and you guys are driving us. I think it's a huge success story, and please, thanks for sharing that information. Is there anything else on that we hadn't touched on that exact, on the exact school and how you're making it work?
I can't think of anything else.
Okay. So what I'm seeing too, that's important, especially, we talk a lot about the younger generation, and I don't believe it's any different myself. I just think it's coming across different because of social media, that they really want to focus on working with companies and working in an industry that makes a difference. And, Beth, you told me some stories the other day when we were talking about why you're so passionate about this. Would you tell us that story about what the real outcome of this is?
Well, I work full time as an association director, and then Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday nights I'm here till 9 o'clock, and sometimes it's pain. But when I see these kids that, and to me they're kids, that I know I'm helping them feed their families for the rest of their lives, then that's a good day, and it's some way that I can give back for what I've received. But what specific story? Because we talk a lot. I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about.
Yes, you just talked about how you just saw the impact of what you were doing, work itself out with a specific kid, and how much of a difference it made with a family. You were telling me that. Do you remember that?
I don't.
Oh, okay. Oh my gosh. Well,
oh, you're talking about the barbecue on the back porch?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, I had a contractor come up to me, went to our program a few years back, and he was on his back porch, and he's 32, 33, runs 2 trucks. And he said, Beth, he says, the reason you go to school or the reason you do this, become a plumber, is because of this. He says, I'm standing on my back porch with my barbecue. I've got my pickup truck. My wife's on the side with my kids. I got my 2 trucks over here. I have a helper that works with me. And here's my 3 buddies from college. And he said, they all went to college and they all made fun of me because I was going to apprenticeship school to become a plumber. And he says, one is now working at Shoney's. And if you don't know what Shoney's is, it's kind of like it's not an upscale restaurant, it's just a chain. And the other one is living with his mom, and he's unemployed. And the other one has an accounting degree and decided he hated accounting. So he said, and I'm sitting there and I own my house there. I own my truck and I have no debt. And they're all like, we should have all been plumbers. And it was just really an amazing story that he told me. And he says, that's the story that needs to be told. And it's not only a story that needs to be told, but it's a way that, and I say this to parents whenever I see, them at any of these career shows, you won't ever be replaced by a computer. As long as there's humans on the planet, you are going to have a job. We'll always need heat and air. We'll always need fresh water. We'll always need indoor plumbing. And a lot of the students don't even know what it is, but I see this tide turning. I really do, going to these career shows, and a lot of the parents are even coming up to me, which never used to be the kind of thing. It was always, my kid needs to go to college. And there's a real just turn of perception, and I don't know if I ever told you this, Joel, but the reason we have this problem was back in the 1970s, early 80s, somebody in Washington, D.C. said, you know what, we have to split these technical schools from the regular high schools. Whether it was a county technical school or they put a walkway over to it, and all because the welding smelled and the home ec smelled and the smell from the dye in the cosmetology department, whatever reason it was, they moved them all from the regular schools thinking that was a better thing to do. Well, then overnight the perception was, if you couldn't handle it in high school, you went over there, or you were bused to this county school. And all the people that had problems, but behavior problems, well, let's just send them over there too. So because they did that, and you look at the exact timeline, that's why we're having this. Over there. That's why you're over there. But if you look at that decision, I mean, it hurt the trade so bad, because I can remember the captain of my high school football team took auto mechanics because he wanted to work on his Mustang. So that was cool to do. But once they moved all that out of there and you only had certain people that went over there, the time frame is just absolutely perfect as to why we're having this problem and people aren't going into the trades. That and the fact that they started to really give high schools funding when they sent their kids to college and not necessarily to a trade school. So then the guidance counselors were all forcing these kids to go into college when that really wasn't a path they should have chosen. But, it's good to look back, but I see it changing now. So.
Well, that's why I like your story so much. That generation of parents that's how they saw it. That's what they were told. That's what we were, a lot of parents I see today, that's how we grew up, is you had to go to college, and then they saw who went into some of those programs a long time ago, and we kind of set it up to fail. And so we're coming out of that now. And that's why your story is so important, because it does immediately set kids on a path that are dedicated and driven. Right. And, and then even some of them that maybe haven't had to be driven, it gives them such a clear path that they can just go do it, and with some help. And we love, and I see all across the country that contractors like Gordy, and there's contractors like that in North Carolina, all over the country, that like to improve their communities. And I don't believe there's a better way to improve your community except giving young kids a career path, a better path, so they raise great families and, go to church and drive those kind of things socially, because they have such a good situation at work, and it bleeds over to their families and everything else. And they raise good kids because they're working hard at it, and they're around that across the country. So I'm excited about that. And I think that's a great outreach outcome for your education program, right? That's why you're driven.
The perception, Gordy started the Ride and Decide program, which I know you've heard about, and probably a lot of other people he can talk about that. But one of the ways that we are trying to get that perception changed is by the Ride and Decide program, and it's been highly successful. And it really needs to be something that is, you know, just
adopted all across the country.
Yeah, just
So
countrywide.
give us 3 minutes of that real quick. What is that?
Well, you know, it all starts back from, you know, for 30 or 40 years, you know, like Beth said, you know, the school system was saying that everybody needed to go to college, and you know, those out in the vocational world were somewhat outcast maybe, but everybody needed to go to college. And that's the way the counselors were taught to guide everybody. And at that time, most of the college jobs were the better paying jobs than the trades, but that's reversed. It's not that way at all anymore, and it is sure hard to overcome 30 or 40 years of teaching that. And so you know, with working with the vocational schools and you know, the high school students for several years, kind of unofficially and not really with a program, but just pitching in. When I got involved with PHCC, then I got involved with the apprentice school, and just sat down back in 2015 and kind of wrote a program to connect the dots a little bit, and so the Ride and Decide program came from that, and it is, I mean, it's really, there's no rocket science to it. It's the simplest thing that there ever was, and I'm sure that I've reinvented the wheel, because there's got to be hundreds, if not thousands, of people that have thought of this somewhere already. But you know, it just takes a kid in our program. It's got to be 16, and pairs them up with contractors like yourself, myself, to work during the summer and get paid to work, either all June or all July or both, and get a little taste of the trades and see what it entails, and if it's maybe something they want to try again next summer and maybe pursue when they get out of high school. It has saved a lot of families already a lot of dollars in tuitions that they would have absolutely thrown out the window. And I'm not saying that nobody needs to go to college, because some of these kids need to go to college, but they will have an informed decision now to make, and they'll have a reason for making it.
Well, you know, I love Gordy. Beth, don't you love how Gordy's so humble about, well, yeah, all I've done is lead the Ride and Decide transformation in Tennessee, and I'm leading this education thing. But yes, I didn't do much. So yeah, Gordy, you know, people are talking about that all over the country, the Ride and Decide program. The big difference is you just did it. You know, you talked about it, and a lot of times people talk and then don't ever do it, but y'all just did it. And that's one of the reasons I love you guys as innovators. And, you know, y'all are innovative. I mean, I don't know if I'm sure you appreciate, I hope you appreciate, you know, it looks later like, well, man, they did, but you just did it. And that's a big difference.
Hey, Joel, 2 summers ago, I had needed my HVAC system, you know, my HVAC system worked on, and I called Gordy, and one of his crews came there, and this kid's on the back porch, and he said, "Hey, Miss Beth, how you doing?" I had no clue. I said, "Hi, how are you? How do I know you?" Because I did the Ride and Decide program 4 years ago. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I remember you." Didn't remember him, you know? So that was just really cool that, you know, and we've had, I don't know, probably 3 dozen or so. We had people last year who they're supposed to work, you know, the 2 different months, and the employers are like, "Hey, I want to keep these people. I want to hire them for full-time jobs," and they've only been here a month, and so we let them do it. I mean, we're going to expand it this year to have 18 to 25-year-olds do it as well.
Okay.
And we also have this May program that we're doing. It's a 2-day program. We're going to bus high school students here into the lab, and they're going to weld and work on HVAC systems and set a toilet and all that kind of thing on a little 2-day mini thing. And we'll see how that goes. And we might do more of those, kind of a hands-on kind of thing, just to get them to know what they're doing, you know. And if they don't like it, at least they'll know how to set a toilet someday in their own house, you know. So
shh, don't say that. Don't say that. So if you had to give so listening to all this, if you had to give any advice, because other chapters are struggling with this what I would say the education programs, what advice would you give them?
sell the future. Sell the future to your contractors, to your students. Don't lose sight of the prize. The prize is having enough employees that are educated and, want to work, whatever. For the students, it's, someday maybe even owning your own business. You're selling the future. It's a concrete granite thing, where college isn't. You don't know what's going to happen when you get out of college. You don't know who's going to pay for it. There's just, it's such a rewarding thing to start and to finish. So I would say sell the future to everybody.
Yeah, the right inside the program, especially, or anything, whatever you call your program. I know different states, different school systems have different programs, and we have taken this program to different areas, and depending on what the association was, they called it whatever they wanted to, but they took the idea. But to any of those people that want to do that, be it a school system, an association, a utility, I have went and taught this thing to them, and they've taken it and went with it. It's really simple. That it's just hard work. When you put it together, the reason it fails most of the time is because nobody's willing to work hard enough at doing it. And if you're going to find the students that want to be successful and want to work hard, you got to work hard to find them and to teach them. And we've been fortunate at doing that, and we've been diligent and had we've had our bumps, and it's not been peaches and cream, but and we had to set 1 year out, but in 6 years of doing it, we've got, that we know of, probably 35, 40, probably many more students than that have done the program, that have got into the field, but we don't have a way to track them all. We know we've got 35 or 40 in 6 years that are in our trades. Maybe not necessarily in our trades, but they're in the skilled trades.
Sure.
Most of them are in our trades, but in the skilled trades, because we open it up to a lot of different things, because not everybody wants to do heating and air conditioning and plumbing. And so you got to make it good for everybody. So it's that simple. It takes some hard work. You don't have to be super smart, obviously, and but it's made a great program. The program is I know, in looking at the education programs that I can find on PHCC around the country, there's a lot of states that are lacking some, I ain't gonna say they're lacking, but some states are ahead of other states on what they have to offer. And I think more people need to know about the program, and it may be what works for them. It may just be one school in one school system that does it, but that's a big thing. So it needs to be on the national site, and where it can get on people's radar, because we've hit accidentally 10 or 12 states at least that have the program in a school or two, or a county or two, or whatever the case may be. And I'm sure there's many more than that need to know about it. And a lot of these schools, they already have their own program. And if it works for them, that's great. That's what it's all about, is putting together whatever works for you in your area.
We called this Hope in Tennessee, and I really think that's what you two have done, and I think that's what you guys are doing. I thought it resonated that you're really, through those education programs and a lot of the other things you do, but your education program especially, you're providing hope for a lot of young people and families, but you're also providing hope for your contractors. As a contractor right now, it's a difficult thing to find new people and give kids a path and give your employees a path that you believe in. And so I think between your brick and mortar school and then that combination of the online pieces and parts of that, that's really what you guys are doing. And I hope you realize that. I think you do. And I think with those outcomes, you see that. But that's a legacy that you two, and Gordy, especially you, with the Ride and Decide and everything. That's a pretty powerful legacy, and that's how we see you. I don't know if you're so humble, you may not give yourself that kind of credit, but that's how the rest of the PHCC world that knows you sees you. And Beth, I love you and how driven you are, but a lot of us learn from you. And so I know, and on behalf of everybody, I know that tons of people love what you guys are doing, and they're trying to figure out how to copy it and not work as hard as you do, but copy it. I'm just kidding, but it's amazing stuff. So listen, I wanted to switch. Any final words on the education piece? That covered. So listen, thanks for that. I do want to switch gears. I do think most leaders read, a lot, and then the really successful ones read and then put things in motion and take action on what they read. And do y'all have any recommendations for books or podcasts or anything besides this one?
I'm actually reading right now The Art of Gathering.
Oh, wow.
Why We Meet and Why It Matters by Priya Parker. And I've read like 5 chapters and it's amazing. Because I want to get better at, meetings and things like that. And but why we meet and why it matters. I mean, if you don't really have a purpose for it, you shouldn't be there. So
well, in today's world with Zoom and everything else, that's important, isn't it? Good grief. Gordy, you got anything to add to that, or?
I'm not much of a reader. It puts me to sleep, unless I'm reading a car manual and I'm building a hot rod or something. I can read that and stay awake.
So that's why I added the doer thing. There are different people. A lot of people need to read to say centered, or they do that, and then I don't think Gordy, I don't think this applies to you, man. I think you're so centered and driven that you need to be writing. You don't need to be reading. But anyway, it was interesting what we talked about. One of the book I'm reading or finished is Reviving Work Ethic by Eric Chester. It's a really good book on a leader's guide to ending entitlement and restoring pride in the emerging workforce. And, you read that title and you say, well, he's focused on the emerging workforce needs to get a better work ethic. It's really about, as leaders, we need to help instill a better work. A lot of it's our fault and how we've raised our kids and all this stuff. So I thought it's really hitting way too close to home, but I thought that was a good one to share. So guys, listen, thank you so much. Any final words?
Well, thanks, Joel, for doing this. I mean, I've watched a few of the other ones, and I think it is a really amazing bridge between national and the states, and to get what the states are doing out on a national level. I learned something from every one of them. So I really think it's a great idea, and I give you kudos for starting this whole process.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. I've watched several of them too, and I did stay awake. I really did. And but it wasn't reading, so it was.
There we go. The ones that I talked the least in. I know, Gordy. I know.
Yeah, but yeah, it's really good. But I am still waiting for my invite to come to North Carolina and present Ride and Decide to one school systems up there. So
okay, well, I will get on that. Was that direct enough, or what? If you hadn't
pretty much.
Yeah. And Joel, can you just please reiterate for the people that are watching this that Tennessee is #1? I mean, I just need that little tidbit there.
I will end this podcast by saying that under the current competitions that we had, Tennessee is #1 in Zone 2A.
Can you add future, current, and future? Can you?
No. But listen, love you guys, and we make a lot of fun of each other, but really what's happened with this zone, and I mean, this is probably something, best advice is this zone, these groups decided that we were going to work really hard to get to know each other better and build trust and argue and laugh and whatever it took.
And share is a biggie. Yeah.
No, it really is. And really try to edify and make each other better. And so I would thank you guys. And, Ellen was the exact same way. And, Stephanie coming into North Carolina, it's made her world so much better being a new exec. And so you guys have really done a great job with that. And so just listen, thanks. It was a lot of fun. And I got to get into this closing thing now, which is, after all that, it sounds really ridiculous that I read this, but whatever, we're going to do it anyway. So thanks so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode. Please spread the word if you can about the podcast, and please don't hesitate to contact us here at podcast@phccrocks.com. We are always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can find the podcast and subscribe at the website phccrocks.com, and please follow us on our social media platforms. You can also find us and subscribe and rate the podcast on most podcast services such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google. Thanks again to Beth and Gordy from Tennessee for being our guests today. And PHCC Rocks is produced and brought to you by Amy Anderson and Elizabeth King from GSM Services and Charlotte Parham of PHCC National. I'm your host, Joel Long, and thanks again for hanging out with us for a few minutes and bringing more reasons why PHCC rocks.